Welcome to the Truth About Ag podcast. I am your host, Evan Schout, and my co-host, Kristjan Hebert. And I'd like to say special guest, but more interesting guest today, I would say. So the first guest we've had on where neither Kristjan or I really know the man, and honestly, this is the first time we've met, so I'm looking forward to it. Also, an interesting story that I want to hear a few things on. So, kind of some backstory on this is I tend to flow through Instagram a little bit and came across a video that I thought was interesting because there was a massive chopper with about 10 tractors following it down the road and piqued my curiosity. And I sent it to Kristjan. I said, okay, how long before we get a chopper? So that's about where the journey started. And then it kind of led into going down the rabbit hole. So I won't take too much time, but Stephen McBee Jr., Missouri, I think I'm correct on that.
Correct.
And,
exactly.
and McBee Farm and Cattle Co. So give me a bit of, I guess, the farm and as well as your background.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it. I was able to do some research into what you guys are doing up there across the border, and it's pretty neat. So appreciate you having me on. But for us, we're a first-generation farming and ranching company out of North Missouri. Really, it just started out of a true passion for being outdoors, specifically hunting and fishing. And that passion somehow spun itself into now, farming upwards of 30,000 acres, running a couple thousand head of Angus cattle. And it's my dad and three of my younger brothers that all work in the operation. We're family owned, family operated. It's really been special. And we've had sort of this meteoric growth over the last decade. And I would like to say that was done intelligently, but it was not at all. And so as we grew very fast, it was more of just picking up opportunity. Obviously, after 2012, commodities crashed, right? So everyone was giving up their ground. And at the time, we thought we were good enough to just pick up ground and you just scale, right? And volume covers up mistakes, but it doesn't. It amplifies them. So we grew really fast, and then our mistakes caught up to us, and now we're in this wave where we're finally fine-tuning our operation and feel somewhat solid about where we're at.
Gotcha. So I guess give me a little bit about, I guess, like you said, your father, your three brothers, I think, if I'm correct.
Yep.
I'm getting a lot off the show. To tell you the truth, I watched the first couple episodes, so I'm pulling it from there. So we will touch on that. I am going to go there, but so give me, I guess, kind of how the farm's run right now. So between the family members.
Yeah. So my dad is currently titled president. He is a guy you could not get him into the office, and I truly mean that. Hardest worker I've ever met in my life. He wants a shovel in his hand. He wants behind the wheel of a tractor. He cannot sit in an office, which for me is extremely frustrating because I'm more of the CEO trying to run the business from a numbers and budgeting perspective. And so I'm trying to wheel my dad into the office as often as I can to sit him down and go over, hey, forecasting, what do we have going on this year? What do things look like next year? My three younger brothers are all involved in the operation in different aspects. One of them's our cattle manager. One of them's our in the field soybean manager. And then one of them's just learning the operation as an operator. So we're all over the place. We have our complementary skill sets in more specialty segments of the operation. But at the end of the day, it's awesome getting to work with family, without a doubt.
And you've got an MBA. That's your background, and
that is correct. Yeah, I have an undergrad in entrepreneurship and then an MBA with an emphasis on finance and accounting. So I joined the operation full time, essentially out of high school, and I was commuting back and forth to college to finish up my degrees. After college, joined the operation full time. We're very diversified. So we have the farming and ranching operation, but we have a custom home building company, an express car wash chain, a direct to consumer meat company, really just trying to diversify the revenue because as soon as I got out of college, I come in with this MBA background, ready to take on the world, right? Super excited about everything. And then I started diving into the financials behind ag and especially like a normal commercial row crop operation. And I'm looking at these trying to put pen to paper and I'm like, something doesn't math out here. Like we're at a break even at best. What is going on? And so, especially coming into this, we don't have any paid off ground. We're paying for all of our ground that we own. Being first generation, it's not like we had paid off ground and equipment. So we're paying mortgages while we're trying to operate the farm itself, which makes things extremely tight from a financial perspective.
Go ahead, Hebes. I don't want to take all the questions from you. So
No, he's preaching to the choir, so I was just listening. right? We're not much different, right? My grandpa farmed, but kind of my dad went out on his own. Same thing. Dad and I, we actually split our farms into two. My brother runs a cattle operation that's a separate company. I always kind of joke that well, my flat out thing is I'm not always a huge fan of brothers in the same company unless they can get the hierarchy figured out. And it
Yep.
sounds like everyone has their management ability, but then they got to buy in. You know, one, they got to buy into the decision maker, and two, there's probably days you got to have big shoulders.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it doesn't come without its battles. I mean, I would say about once a week we're about coming to blows. But the good thing about all of our personalities is we can be out in the field about to throw down, and then that night we're eating dinner together like nothing happened. So we're able to recover from our fights very quickly. But that's not to say there are not many fights between the family.
Yeah, I think Evan, I would go down the path of, so the one thing, we talk a lot about, and I think Evan actually shared it on one of your shows, is this: if you're progressive in Canada, we always said, 33% of your neighbors, to be honest, love you and support you. 33% just go on with their life as if it's normal day today, and about 33% don't like you, and some are pretty vocal about it. And we've seen operations up here, including us, that have other businesses that we almost brand separately. But it sure appears you guys have kind of decided to just, everything's one brand. It's different businesses, but we're going to brand it this way, and this is who we are. So it'd be great to get your comments on. It appears you're dealing with the same issues we are, and kind of why you've went the method you have.
Again, it's definitely not by intelligence. There's no intelligent design in the way we set up our companies. That was just the way that we set them up and branded them. For me, it was easier to build it all up together under one brand. And now, obviously, having the TV show, attaching our last name to the majority of the brands just made the most sense. If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have our last name near any of our brands. It has caused so much headache. And I don't understand what it is about our ag community because there's so many good things about it. I love the majority of the people we get to work with and the majority of the people we're around day in and day out. But man, the people that don't like you, they will passionately go out of their way to try and ruin you. And it makes no sense. I'm like, how do you even have time in the day to follow us around and try and do these whistleblower call-ins? Like, how do you have time? I don't even have time to try and hate on someone else. But it's just how some of these people are, and it frustrates me to no end. But we've really learned that, hey, we're going to be a lightning rod of people either love us or they passionately hate us. So we better make sure we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, and doing things the right way because we have no margin for error. I mean, if there's people that literally follow our sprayers around with a freaking windometer, whatever the hell they're called, and are like, all right, it's getting to 16 miles an hour. They better shut down right now. Literally people following us around like that.
So I guess you opened it up a bit. So the different brands. So I want to go into a little bit because obviously I didn't know a lot about them till we did a little bit of research. I'd like to say I did some prep for this one. So you should feel honored since I haven't done much prep for the other ones. The Apex protein snacks and the meat company and the coffee and car wash and the custom homes, like how did all of those brands fall out from this? Like where did the diversification strategy come from? Or did it just, like you said, just fall in?
Some of the things fell in, like the Apex protein snacks and the meat company. Those were all like the idea of vertically integrating the farm. So we had phase 1 row crop, phase 2 cattle. How do we, turn that into the next phase of vertically integrating it to where we're doing shelf stable snack sticks? Okay, we got that figured out. Now let's do raw beef distribution. So that was all part of just creating the vertical integration of the farm. If you'd have asked me 10 years ago what my vision of the farm was long term, it was to be completely vertically integrated, to where we're growing the food that feeds our cattle, feeds our herds, that we're then turning into end products for consumers. I just knew that was the best way to create margin that we could actually create a profitable company from. Like the car wash and the custom home building, that just came out of necessity where it's like, okay, let's look for businesses that are pretty much polar opposite from the farm in that you're lower labor, you're lower overhead. It's like the car wash side, it's mostly automated. We have reoccurring revenue in the monthly subscriptions with our tunnel car washes. If you think about it, like, hey, if I suck at sales this week, if we have something wrong in sales this week, I can fix it next week or the following month. In ag, if you screw up in the spring when you're planting your crops, you're done for the year. There's no chance to collect on that revenue again or make up for that bad planting season. That's why I love something like a car wash, because you get the chance to try new customers out or try new sales tactics every week or month. Whereas in farming, it's one go a year. And if you don't make that go a good run, you're done for.
So a bit of a risk mitigation strategy, if
100%.
anything.
Yeah, it's just risk mitigation for sure.
Gotcha. So the businesses outside of agriculture. So obviously you named your three brothers and what their roles are within the farm. So who's running the outside businesses, or is it just fall under you guys still?
So for the most part, it falls under my dad, and my dad takes the lead on the home side. I take the lead on the car wash side, as far as more of president type of role. Now we have active CEOs in both of those companies that do a really good job of actually running the companies day in and day out. We would just be spread too thin. And my dad and I are very like-minded in that we both have the entrepreneurship bug badly. And I would say one of the first major flaws in my first phase of entrepreneurship, we'll call it from getting out of college till now, almost 30 years old, was that I said yes to every opportunity that came my way. As you can tell from the companies that are all over the place. And honestly, we've shut down a few companies after realizing you can't take everything on. A good opportunity comes around, a once in a lifetime opportunity really comes around like twice a year. It's the things that you're saying no to that make the businesses you currently have more successful. So it's been something I've had to learn over and over, and I still fight it every day when new opportunities come my way. I'm like, do we have the bandwidth to take this on? No. It's a great idea. Love this business model. Love this whatever opportunity it may be, but it's not for us right now.
I love it, because honestly, that's probably on our list of biggest risks, is just saying yes to too many things. And that, like you said, that
normal
can be businesses.
Whenever someone's an entrepreneur, you just see all these opportunities. You're like, man, the whole world is my oyster, and it is. But you can only take on so much at one time and do it right.
Well, we always say that being an entrepreneur is just being like in sports, right? We're addicted to the game.
Yep.
It's not the money. It's not anything. It's the game and the people. Absolutely. People didn't have to, nobody had to wake us up at 6:30 on a Saturday when we were 10 years old to go play hockey or football or baseball. We just did it because we loved it. And that's really what business is, right? It's a sport. And so anytime you get a chance to try and excel at a sport, you want to say yes. But we're the same. You got to really kind of get focused in on where you're going and what your team can accomplish, because it's a pretty good way to push team members away when you're saying yes too much.
It is. It's a good way to push team members away, and it's a good way to get burnt out. And I think, 3 years ago, we were really bad at just taking on anything and everything we could, and really just trying to hone in on what we have going right now and turning away other opportunities. We finally have started to gain the momentum over the last 8 to 12 months that we were hoping to get. And we're so focused on what we currently have, I don't even look at new opportunities right now. And that is, it's not because I don't want to. It hurts me to say no to things, but I'm doing it.
So I guess we opened it up a little bit. So on the team side, so what does the team look like? So I mean, from a employee standpoint, how you running it? I know on one of the shows, the morning meetings and the deadlines and the goals and stuff like that. Just give us the broad spectrum of how you're running the business from an employee standpoint, people standpoint.
Yeah. Globally, we have right around 380 employees right now. On the farm itself, we range anywhere from 45 to 70 during peak harvest seasons or planting seasons. On the farm side, it's really tough because that was one of the things I came into farming, like I said, wanting to set the world on fire. And most people view a farm like a summer job. Like, hey, I need to make some money real quick. I'm going to go work at this farm for a few months. There is nothing more technologically advanced and more of a challenging skill set than having a 15 to 20-year-old farm veteran that knows the inside and out of every single, in our case, John Deere tractor cab, knows every single screen on that John Deere tractor cab, knows the ins and outs of planting, corn especially. And people think that farming is like, oh, you got your coveralls on, you throw a seed in the ground and it grows. There is so much to farming that is so much more complex than any other business out there that it takes a very, very skilled person to be a manager type level at a farming operation. So we needed to change that and say, we need guys to think, or men and women to think, this is a career here. How do we stay here long term, or where do we fit in long term? And so we've been able to implement an advancement plan where if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's and you wanted to work at the farm, you can come in here, but you're going to be at our lowest level on our totem pole. We actually have our different levels. We call it all the way up from service techs to operators to farm managers to production manager. And you'll work up through that and test out of that level until you're at the highest level, which is a production manager overseeing 10 to 12 people at any given time. And so we've implemented benefits packages similar to what you'd find in corporations down in the city. We've implemented bonus incentives based on yield and covering acreage. It's all been about fine tuning it and trying to compete with corporations down in the city, because that's where we were losing all of our talent to.
I'm loving this, because honestly, this is 100% of the 100% of what we speak on and what we coach on and everything else. So this is, you're preaching to the choir, I guess would be the line right now. So
we better ask Evan, Steven, have you read the book Traction by Gino Wickman yet?
That book is our Bible across all of our. Yeah.
I just assumed so. We run everything on EOS, and it felt pretty similar.
Familiar.
Yeah. We've got EOS in our car wash on our car wash side right now. It's been a work in progress getting it implemented on our farm side, but that is the end goal, is to get EOS in our farm side too.
Yeah.
Nice.
We've been Evan? We'd be 4 years. Yeah. 4 years EOS on the farm side and the consulting side.
Really?
I would say we implemented it super fast into the management team and the office team, and the farm team itself has been more like a 3-year goal, right? And it's just, even me personally, I had a hard time telling everybody to come in at 7 a.m. on a Monday or Tuesday when we could be going straight to the field and working. Yeah. So I would call the farm operations streams like a hybrid EOS model, but we've had it in the management team and the office team. Yeah. For 3-4 years. It's a good system. It's life-changing.
It is. It is. Yeah, on the car wash side, the benefits we've seen alone since fully integrating and implementing that system, it's been unbelievable.
So I'm gonna shift us a bit out. I want to talk more about the marketing side, so the PR side, the social media. The things that drew me into why we wanted to have you on today, to tell you the truth. So before I touch on the television series and some of the other stuff, I want to hear, I guess, from a marketing standpoint, you guys are really pushing out there. From the videos, from Instagram, the Reels, the Twitter. What was the strategy, and I guess do you see the ROI coming back, I guess? Because that's something that we've focused on, and it's really hard to identify an ROI on that, right off from a revenue standpoint. So what's your opinion on that, I guess, Stephen?
So the marketing and sales side is where my specialty lies and where I really wanted to focus whenever we came into the farm side. And it was all about, at first, we didn't have anything to sell or create that actual income producing side from our social media. So we were just making all these cool farm videos, just trying to get exposure, right? I figured, hey, if we build the following, we'll find something to sell them. And so that was the idea behind it. Now we have, obviously, the meat sticks, we have farm apparel. With the TV show, we have some new businesses coming down the line that all kind of fall under this whole making farming cool again, is the whole idea behind it. And so that was what we built out our social media around. Now you'll see a lot of our meat company talking about regenerative agriculture and the things we're doing on our cattle side to promote, regenerative practices. And so it's all just about consumer education on the meat co side, but on the farm side, what we're just trying to do is introduce people to what farming is, and we do it through some hyperbolized videos. Obviously, the helicopter drive, flying in front of 10 tractors. We don't send all 10 tractors out to the exact same field at the same time. We stage some of that stuff just to get exposure, get eyeballs on us, bring eyeballs into the show. Really, that's what we're trying to do on the farm side. And the goal is to come out with longer form content in the form of these podcasts and things like this, where we actually dive into what we're doing. Social media wise, I hate to say this, I'm just doing it for clicks. I'm just trying to get exposure. So yeah. That's what we found. And we're starting to see the ROI, like even the farm videos that have nothing to do with our meat company will end up pushing people towards the meat company and having them be purchasers of our meat.
Perfect. Hebert's just refreshing it kicked him out, so he'll be back.
Oh yeah.
No, and honestly, that was my biggest question, was just, so we've obviously the last few years we've invested, same as you guys, we've really pushed the social side, and the blogs, editorials, obviously the podcast, everything else, and it's really hard to quantify an ROI without seeing the numbers. And Kristjan and I are both CPAs by trade, so it's hard to invest a whole bunch of dollars and time into something that you're not necessarily seeing direct return on. So, yeah. So that was big for us. So I did want to pick your brain on that, because that was one of the biggest things I saw with you guys, and even from the merch standpoint, is I love the shirts. I love all that stuff. So,
well, and for me, it's something that really since 2018, paid ads have just been horrible on an ROI perspective. So I knew organic was where we were going to have to go. And you just have to play the long-term game when you're going organic and just say, hey, we're doing this knowing that probably for 3 to 5 years, we're not going to have an ROI. But after 5 years, it may end up paying off.
Yeah. So I guess that's going to, his is still screwing up, but that's gonna bring me around to, I guess, the television side. So where did the opportunity come from? I mean, did you guys push it, or did it actually come into you? And then obviously with Yellowstone, I mean, we're obviously watchers and everything else, and I see that's the branding on the website and everything else. So give me that story, I guess, the rundown.
So it was 2019, 2020. I started having a bunch of people reach out to us and just said, hey, have y'all seen this new show, Yellowstone? I'd never even heard of it. They were like, you guys are so strikingly similar to the show, the family drama. My brother Jesse's a spitting image of Casey Dutton, like literally a spitting image. It's weird. I flew a helicopter. There was just a lot of similarities. I'd never heard of it. I started watching a few episodes and I was like, man, this show is really, some of the stresses and pressures they face are spot on. And you guys being a large, ag operator, know how true some of that stuff is when it talks about the outside pressures coming in on the farm. And there had been some talk about some reality shows being done, like a real life Yellowstone. And I was like, man, this would be perfect for us. We have some big personalities in my family. There's always something going on. We're always facing a new battle. And so I actually had some production companies reaching out to me about a freaking dating show. And so I was like, well, a dating show is not what I want to do right now. But if I can get them out here to the farm, I might be able to spin this into a real life ranching show. So I did the dating show. They came out to the farm. We had 80 people from California out here in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, filming a bunch of girls, and I was dating them at the time. It was a dating show called Joe Millionaire. It aired on Fox in 21. And then ended up spinning out from there. Once people came out and saw the farm, the production companies from LA, it's a small world out there in reality TV land. And so we had production companies calling us nonstop about pitching this new show idea.
Yeah. And so I guess you brought it up. So obviously, she became wife.
Still dating her.
Still dating her. Okay.
Yeah, I make fun of dating TV, and here I am. I actually met my girlfriend off of it.
No, like I said, I've seen enough of the show to know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hebes, I keep kicking you out because you're still fading in and out.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing to me.
Yeah. So I guess on the TV side, what have you seen come from it? I guess like from not only the positive side but the negative side as well. Like what's the exposure doing for the operations?
I would say the TV side has just put us on a larger platform, but as far as like percentage of people that love you, people that hate you, it's the same exact percentage as we had before. Nothing's changed. It's just now instead of 100 people with 90 people loving us, 10 people hating us, it's, 1 million people. So, you just grow that ratio out. From an ROI perspective, our merch side is done really, really well. We've moved about 10 to 12K worth of merch per week since the show dropped. Literally just farm apparel, which is, it's good little side income. There's nothing to joke about it. And that's just from season 1 of our show. Meat Co side, the direct to consumer meat distribution has been great since the show dropped. We really expect it to pick up here if we get some additional seasons, which I can't discuss yet. But needless to say, there should be something here pretty soon. And so we're really in this thing for the long haul, saying if we get to season 3, that's when our life changes. Not only does the income from the actual episodes itself from filming the show increase drastically, but all of our brands would reflect the exposure from having 3 seasons on air.
Gotcha.
So, right now it's a big pain in the butt, though. Yeah. The filming schedule is a pain in the butt. I'm not gonna lie.
I was waiting for that, but I was gonna let you say it instead of me.
Yeah, no, it's a pain.
So I guess the only part we haven't touched would be the venture capital side, and I'm hoping, Kristjan, you're still here enough because that's your specialty, not mine. So what did you want to pull from Steven on that one?
Yeah, I'm a general partner in a venture cap firm up here in Canada, and did some time down in San Francisco working on it. So it was interesting to see that you're approaching venture capital, and it might be private equity and you're just using venture capital for words, but I thought kind of a two-pronged question. One, it looks like you have an outside CFO, non-family CFO that has been pretty huge to your operation. And I'd imagine some of that has led to, these venture capital conversations, and it is a little different Canada and the US on how land ownership, et cetera, works. So it'd be great to have you comment on the CFO, but then also comment on what are you thinking you're going to do with the outside investment? Where do you want to push that? How would you structure it? And how would you create the right ROI for those guys?
Yeah, CFO wise, you're talking about Galena, and her actual area of expertise is in operations. She's the best operator I've ever seen in my life. She was more CFO just out of necessity. She did an incredible job for the limited knowledge and experience she has as a CFO. Now we actually have a full-time CFO role that we've hired since the show, and she's moved back into operations. She's been incredible, though. We could not have survived. We wouldn't have been able to stabilize and grow these companies without her. So she's basically family to us. Yeah, so she has a small equity position in every single company we have. And honestly, that equity position is not enough for what her real value is. She's the most important person in our company. So she's been a tremendous help. As far as the, looking for private equity money, that was it wasn't staged because we are looking to do that with the car washes. We just didn't need it that early. The car washes at that time when we filmed the episodes, we weren't even a year into operations with our first location. Now we have 8 of them up and going. We'll have another 2 open in the next month or 2. We really didn't want to start searching for private equity investment until we had those stabilized because the valuation is so much better. And so we knew no private equity firm is going to jump on board when we're in the first 6 to 8 months of operations with the majority of our locations. That was a bit dramatized for the episode. We knew that was the guy that we were talking to on the episodes. He is actually a real private equity fund creator. He's already started one fund and sold it. He actually has just started his other fund. So he was in on helping us, trying to lead us up and then drop the bombshell at the end. No, you guys aren't getting the investment. We knew we weren't planning on getting the investment that early anyways. The plan was to stabilize these locations at about 24 months and then look for private equity investment where they come in, they just buy the real estate. We still own the operating entity of the car washes.
Yep.
So basically it's a sale leaseback model.
Yep. I assumed.
Yep.
So you made the mention, and obviously, so I'm a part equity owner in Hebert Grain Ventures as well. So much like Galena, you said, has an equity share. So obviously a lot of farms don't play that route without family members. So I guess what led to that, and where did your mind go on why you did it, I guess, off the start?
For us, we really decide all of our relationships based on who was there in the darkest, bleakest moments and who was there to fight with us in the trenches. And Galena was there in 2020, 21. She's really been here since 17, but she was there through a couple of years that I honestly don't know how we even survived because things were so freaking tough. COVID, we planned on getting 20 H-2A visas into the farm. We got 0. So then we were short 20 people, and we were trying to plant at that year, 2020, we had 42,000 acres trying to cover with 20 people short. You want to talk about just an absolute stressful as all get out, don't even know how we're going to get across the acreage. And she was there for every bit of it, working all night long, no sleep. I could trust her with my life. And so coming out of that battle and getting the companies a little more stabilized and just knowing hey, this person deserves every bit of every win we're ever going to have from here on out.
Gotcha. So is she the only employee that's got equity, or you got other individuals?
Correct. That's it.
She's
Yep. Yeah. That's the only time we've ever done that, because usually we say the only ship that never sails are partnerships. And so we don't like doing partnerships or any sort of joint equity in anything.
Gotcha. So I guess before I ask a few of the ending questions, I more or less wanted to open up to you. So, you said you did a little bit of research into us, and any questions, I guess, from our standpoint that you'd like to know from us?
From a diversification standpoint, how did you guys decide your diversification schedule, or how did you decide to open things up? I mean, I know for us, like I said, it was not done by intelligence whatsoever. So how do you guys look at your diversification and open things up?
Go ahead,
Yeah, so I
Kristjan.
mean, like when I grew up, we had grain and cattle. The one thing, obviously, you get into Saskatchewan, it's a little bit cold here in the winter, and so conversion rates on cattle and logistics to get them to feedlots, I couldn't always get my head around expanding it a whole bunch. My brother and sister-in-law have a large cow calf farm, but I couldn't get around really kind of blowing it up and making it huge. So that and I didn't have a love for it, and so when I came home, we kind of split into two, and we started growing the grain farm. We was kind of 3,500 to 5,000 acres when I moved home, and
Yep.
we'd be kind of planting that 40,000 plus now too. But at the same time, Evan and I are both recovering accountants, so we're both CPAs by trade. Kind of majors in finance and accounting at university, and I felt that data was going to be our strength. So I always joke around. I just want to turn agriculture into blackjack. So if the dealer's got a 6 and I got 2 8s, I know what the odds are. I can make that decision all day, every day.
Right.
And so that kind of led us down the fact of, if we want to be good at finance and we want to be good at data, then our first kind of diversification should be a consulting company. And so we were doing CFO work for other large farms. We were doing contract work for multinationals and for the government. And it was all around, to be honest, the processes and the mistakes and the learnings we had made on the farm. So it's kind of like a mini franchise model without franchising.
Right.
And as we started going down that, I was going to, we were implementing EOS. I had done TPAP down at Texas A&M, and then I was going to a coach called Strategic Coach out in Toronto. And I was like, why aren't more farms doing this? Kind of like your talk of, like, I don't understand why some farms can be so negative, but at the same time, I don't understand why the top 30% don't talk to each other more. We're too individualistic. So that kind of led down the farmer coach model, and Evan's really good at the coaching side. My ADHD is a little too extensive to coach for too long. But it was to build that kind of peer group mentality of, why are we making the same mistakes? We might as well, 80% of the stuff we can agree on, 20% we're going to disagree, but then let's learn from each other on that 80 and just move even faster. Right. So that was the farmer coach model. And then, the part that we've got branded separate and we don't kind of share too publicly is, obviously I'm the general partner in a venture cap firm, but we have a kind of a family private equity fund that we kind of invest in two things. One, obviously it helps the farm, so areas that we could very vertically integrate or parts we're trying to learn on. And the other one is just, I find that I can't spend time researching stuff that I don't enjoy, and the best way for me to enjoy it is if I invest in it. So I mean, we had a bunch of money in a couple lithium companies 5-6 years back, because I was truly trying to figure out, do I need to have a better plan to switch the farm to electric in the next decade, or is it 20 or 30 years out? And I had a belief, -40 in the winter in Saskatchewan, a little tough for a battery to be real good. But the way to really focus on it was to put some money in that company and watch the CEO pivot and learn. And so I'm kind of like you. I'd like to say, and I just met with the team this morning on kind of where we're going. And I said, I'd like to draw them this big picture of what it looks like when I'm 45 and when I'm 50 and when I'm 60 and when I'm 80. But it's like, to be honest, we're on a journey playing a game that we really enjoy, and we just try to go faster and faster down the highway, right? Dig deep ditches so the team doesn't cross the road, move rocks out of the way so they can go faster, and make sure the road keeps getting built in front of them so they can keep driving. And to put the actual destination, it's kind of built the way you've built it, in that, do what we love, find out where the best margin is, and move in that direction. And then really, it's built on our people. Like our people are everything, and so they help drive the operation and the vision as much as I do now. I might pull a string to have a network open, or get Evan in front of the right people to go build that side, but it's like, I don't know, I think if people are happy and are doing what they love, they make me way more money. So maybe I should listen more and talk less when I'm with the team, and magically the business goes where it should.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think for us, it was, I mean, having the consulting side also gives us the ability to synergize back to the farm. So, I mean, I get to see the internal operations and the things that work on other operations that maybe we're not trying or doing. So it was almost like a benchmark or a check for the farm, which is kind of the catalyst for the entire group. and on the same effect, they wanted to learn from us. So that's kind of where the coaching fell out of, and the consulting. And I mean, again, it was a risk diversification just like yours, which was, a steady flow of income and different operation. And, if all of a sudden we had a down year on the farm, the consulting side doesn't have that same down year, because it probably creates some fear, and we probably have a better year,
Right.
on the other side. So that was the big one. And I mean, at Strat Coach, which I'm a part of with Kristjan as well, is just the unique ability is, I mean, my unique ability turned into the coaching and the consulting. And if I'm going to spend 80% of my day somewhere, that's where it should be spent, where we've built the team well enough that the CFO role, which I originally had on the farm, has almost turned into 20% of my time, because the staff has, through delegation and stuff, they've just taken it on. And I and I'm already to the point where I see a destination where that might actually be not even in my role and accountability anymore, kind of that flow.
Well, and I think Evan too, and I'd like your opinion on this, Steve, because I would bet you have your own theory on it behind it. So I originally I wasn't a big fan of brand and network and our name being out there. I was like, no, let's just go kick ass under the, behind closed doors, and nobody should know. But then I realized that you can't really see the future, but you could predict it a little bit if your brand and network gets so big that whether it's policymakers or big companies, if they're going to do something you're really going to like or really not going to like, they actually feel they need to phone you first. And I'm not saying we can affect their decision if it's something we don't like, but it's kind of predicting the future if you get a bit of a nuance into what the future is going to be. And so that's part, even though some of the haters and that pissed me off originally, now I just don't, to be honest, don't give a fuck. But it was that, how do we pivot faster than everybody else? Well, it's to know what's coming in the future more than anybody else. And the brand and the network allowed us to have those conversations and be in those rooms. And like I said, some of it's super positive, but some of it's just to know a bad thing that's coming down the ropes in 6, 12, 18 months so that we can pivot and be ready for it. And we're not blindsided. And I would assume you have your own version of that theory and what you've seen in your build.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying. And it has helped us tremendously. And it has stemmed from this mindset. One of the reasons why I went ahead and continued building this base around the McBee name is, hey, I can't predict the future. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if we'll be farming in 10 or 15 years because I can't see that far ahead. But what I do know is if we have a brand built around our name and we have a large following for that, no matter who it is, we've got an audience to sell whatever it is we're doing to. So that was another reason behind it is, hey, this is a risk mitigation for future businesses or endeavors. If something were to happen to the farm, we could take this and hop over to, like now we've got the food side or, the car wash side, whatever it is, we've got an audience to sell to.
So you want me to predict the future for you right now on one question?
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
So I'm 41. I got a 10 and a 12-year-old. And I swear to God, nothing keeps me up at night. But there's one question that haunts me every now and then, and I forget who asked it to me the first time, was, I say that we really made our farm into a business because my dad and I would have the talks that it was a monster. My dad's very much like your dad. He loves farming. He loves working hard. But he didn't really, enjoy people, and he didn't enjoy the office. So it took up a lot of his time. There was some years where he had a hard time getting to watch sports events, and it bothered him. So we said, piss on that. We're going to fix that. And he's been a huge part of fixing it. Right. And so now I can make every baseball game and hockey game, and you build this thing. And we talk about, making agriculture cool again or making it great again, whatever term you want to use. It's like, but what if I build this thing that I think so awesome and my kids don't think it's awesome and, or think it's too big and they can't handle it. Right. So we've actually put in some strategies now, or if my kids aren't interested, it can just run itself and they can collect dividend checks, or they could be a mechanic, or to be honest, they can just be a shareholder and live somewhere else. Or we might partition it out into 4 or 5 separate businesses and they could just run the one they want to run. But it was 3 or 4 years ago. It was a question that once they kind of got 8, 9, 10, and I could see they were a little bit interested. But when I was 30, I wasn't thinking about it at all. I was just like, piss on this. We're just going to do it different and take over the world. And hopefully we can attract a bunch of people to do it with us. And then when you bring kids into it, it starts to change how you think a little bit on building it in. But it's like, we work with so many people who don't even think about a succession plan until they're 90. And here at 35, I was like, okay, I need to start making some of these decisions so that it isn't a disaster if we need to pull some of this out, or if we need to put them in and they love being a mechanic and want to be a dividend, type person, and they could have a great life like that. But we need to set it up that that's possible. And I don't know any other way to do it.
No, I could not agree more with that. Thankfully, we've got obviously the succession plan with my younger three brothers and I. So we've got it to the next generation. But then, like you just said, what are we going to do for that next generation, our kid? Start setting it up to where it's not dependent on us to be around full time if they just want to collect dividend checks and want to be off the farm or in the city, because there's no telling what the future is going to behold for them.
Well, and I think we're lucky, right? There's a reason Buffett can still do his job, is he built a great team and he gets to read lots, drink a couple Coke, and make some great decisions, right? And everybody else does everything. And I think just the little bit I researched on you, is that's our similarity is if we can build the dashboards right and the team right, our goal is to have a big network and to help get our team into situations and opportunities that they can win at. And you can do that at 90 years old, where it's a lot tougher to do all the physical stuff at 90 years old.
You guys would be laughing at me because we are in the very early stages of that. Right before this podcast, I was the only one around the shop at the time because we're in the middle of spraying our second pass of fungicide and insecticide on. So I had a trucker pull up unannounced that was dropping off a big load. So I'm out there running the forklift in the shop. But we're still in the early stages of that. We've got a long ways to go.
Yeah, we've been there too. This year's planting is the first year ever that I haven't worked a 24-hour shift. Right?
Really?
So don't feel bad. I always say it's baby steps. As long as you're making baby steps, you're winning.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess we've kind of covered most of my last questions, which were going to be, what's the end goal? And I mean, Kristjan, I asked this question before we even came in here, and he's like, well, I can't answer that because I don't even know what's coming down the pipe. So I don't want to unfairly ask you that one, Stephen, but I will ask you I'm going to give you, I guess, a little bit of you can sell what you want to sell right now to our crowd, because obviously this is probably a different crowd than you're used to, and I hope that this gets you a few viewers and everything else. But give us your sales pitch on McBee Farm and Cattle.
If I had one overarching goal for us as a brand, more than anything we could ever sell anyone, I would love to sell just how great the farm and ranch is to raise a family on, and how good it is for future generations to never lose the heart and soul of what built our country, what built your country. My goal with the show, kind of more than anything we're doing, is say, I want to bring America back to the roots it was raised on through our farms and ranches. So bring kids back into the farm. The average age of the American farmer is 58 years old now and increasing with every single day. What are we going to do in 10, 12 years whenever all those farmers are gone? Who's going to take it over? And so that's really what I want to do, is try and get as many eyeballs on the ag industry as possible. Make it cool again. Make people want to move back to the farm, see how great this lifestyle is. There's sunsets that you could never get in the city skyline that you get out here on the farm. And I want people to really enjoy and understand that. And I think that that's something we're trying to convey in every single thing that we do, even though it may be by way of a drama-filled reality show. If we're able to get 100 more people more actively involved on a farm and ranch, then it was successful in my eyes.
Good. We always say the one line I use lots when I'm speaking, right, is that I don't know where we're going, but my job is to build something cool enough that gives my kids the opportunity, and all the people's kids that work for me the opportunity to go to Harvard. But when they leave and they apply, the job offer from Hebert Grain Ventures, Facebook, Goldman Sachs, Blackstone are all on the table, and they're actually looking at it. If they don't choose us, that's fine. But if our job offer is not on the table, then we haven't done our job, because we haven't shown them all the great parts of farming and ranching, right? And so it's funny, we say a lot of the same stuff just in a different way, but I think most farmers are just super passionate about what we do, right? And we just maybe don't spend enough time talking to other people for that passion to leak through for them to understand.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you, Stephen. Obviously, we took up enough of your time today, probably. So again,
guys, I appreciate it. This was a fun conversation.
No, it was good. So again, that's the truth about ag.